Hi there. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. It's another lovely afternoon, and it is cold as hell outside. We got minus 25 out there again today. But yeah, thanks for stopping in. And thought we'd do another live stream after the last one that we did. It was sort of trending in a direction that seemed to be a little bit controversial. And so today, I just want to talk a little bit more, kind of specific to the cars again, and what we're up against in this new world of the automotive industry, and the fact that it appears with the latest headlines that car manufacturers can't build an engine anymore. Sup there, bearded Vado. Hey, nice to have you here. Hi, says Brian Glenn. Great having you there, guys. It's another glorious afternoon, and thanks for stopping by. I just want to dive bomb into just a little bit of casual conversation. I do have an underlying topic, and that's about why manufacturers can't seem to build engines anymore. I mean, we've only been doing the internal combustion engine for what, 100 and some years, and it feels as though every time we turn around, there's new problems. BT says Boswari and howdy from Demonica. Sorry, Demonica Rossi. Hi there. Great to have each and every one of you, and I appreciate it. Sorry, and pardon my eyes. It's not the writing. It's my eyes. I just can't quite. When you get up there in age, it sort of goes that way sometimes. Bearded Vado says, heard about the Nissan Honda situation. No merging. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, everybody heard the rumors that Honda was going to dig Nissan out of the hole. But then, I actually saw the former CEO of Nissan who talked about that and said that there's no way for it to work properly without having a conflict. And so, yeah, it looks as though Nissan plans to kind of go back on their own, and maybe there's a little bit of pride at stake there. I don't know. But yeah, it looks like maybe Nissan and Honda aren't necessarily tying together. Andromeda says, happy Friday and welcome, and thanks for stopping by as well. And George K says, good evening from Belleville, Ontario. Hey, George, great to have you for sure. I don't know what the weather's like down there. Probably a lot warmer than down here in the prairies. I know we're freezing right now. We just popped out. We're supposed to get another week and a half of like minus 30, minus 25, minus 30. So it's pretty chilly down in these parts. Moeg says, BMW guy, favorite one, hey, from Catilia. Sorry. Pardon me. Like I said, my screen is a little fuzzy, and I've had the cat, he rubs himself on here. We have a cat, and he's walking around, and then he ends up rubbing on here and then leaves a bit of a, I don't know, greasy film with some hairs on it on my screen here as he walks by. So pardon me. But, the question really was about, the fact that engine makers can't seem to build engines anymore. And I think I always believe there's more to it than just that. But we can certainly dive bomb into that conversation. George K says only 3. Wow, that is nice. Yeah, I feel like I gotta move. Like, who here, hands up, thinks I should move to somewhere warmer? Like, I need to move. Maybe even out of the country, somewhere warmer. I don't know. It's pretty extreme here some days. Minus 30, minus 35. I like to walk and get out, and I can't even do that some days because it's pretty cold. Andromeda says the former Nissan CEO running from an arrest warrant in Japan. Yeah, I've heard there's something going on there for sure. Parvez Bellop says, hey there from Kitchener, Ontario. Hey, welcome and glad to have you here for sure. Moved to Florida, says Mayag. Yeah, I'd love to. Actually, we got some relatives that just moved down there a couple of years ago now. They have a small business, well, bigger business now, and they sort of set up a shop. Yeah, I mean, they keep saying, "Hey, you got to come down, come down." They live actually in Kissimmee, which obviously Orlando, Disney World, all that. Um, it'd be nice to get away from the centers like that, but at least they were out of a little bit further away from kind of the hurricane issues. I know they had a little bit of, smashed trees and a little bit of minor wind damage this year, but it wasn't too bad. Um, Pervez says, just wondering what's going on with Mitsubishi plug-in hybrid vehicles, the Outlander, in other words. How is Mitsubishi doing? That's a great question now because, well, the plug-in hybrid's one thing, but even the EV, I know there was an initial conversation with Mitsubishi, Honda, and Nissan supposed to collaborate. Now, how that looks, that's going to be up in the air too. And I know Mitsu got rid of their little Mirage, and I don't know. Mitsubishi is kind of, to me, a little bit unstable. The quality's not necessarily top shelf. Some people like them, and the plug-in hybrid is a nice feature because otherwise, if you get a plug-in hybrid in a Mazda or a Toyota, you pay premium dollars. So Mitsu's a little more affordable that way. I don't know. It's time will tell on Mitsubishi. I'm sort of a little bit reserved on that brand. RZK 1966 says it's 76 here in Florida. Wow. 76. What are we talking? Maybe I want to say we're probably 16 degrees Celsius or so. It's pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie. I definitely can handle that. Raymond Humphrey says from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Welcome and great to have you there, Raymond. What do we got here? Impending Doom says, "Good day, all from Melbourne, Australia, or Melbourne, waiting for the new Mazda 6." Absolutely. I think Mazda is still crushing it out there. There have been some problems with their latest, with that turbo inline 6 and the CX90, and I think there's been some electrical problems with those. But other than that, the 2.5 liters, they're just bulletproof. Scott Medlin, hey, enjoy your show. Your boy's gonna beat Colorado tonight. Oh yeah, you betcha. Well, the Oilers have been doing pretty well. They I think they're up in the standings there, so it'll be an interesting one to see. But I don't know. We'll see. I think it's going to be a good show, no doubt about it. Impending Doom says, "Come to Melbourne. We have 35 degrees." Absolutely. I think we get like maybe 1 or 2 days a year, like 35 degrees. Otherwise, it's, we're lucky if we get 22, 23 in a summer day, and overnight gets down to like +7. So that's in the summertime. Wintertime is just misery. But Andromeda says the Mitsubishi Lancer still looks really cool today. It doesn't show its age. Yeah, I would agree. It's kind of a well-tested, time-tested type design. Classic, not overdone. I think that's where I like the Civics. I actually love the Civics. I think they're one of the best products in that segment. But I think the only thing with the Civic is that sometimes they overdo some of the styling on it, and that's where the Mitsu's a little more consistent. Pervez says, "Great answer, but how are they going to get away with their famous 10-year warranty?" Not well if they're not around long enough to offer it up. What do we have? Kevlar, bring back the 93 Mazda RX-7 twin turbo. Yes. I agree with that. I love that car so much. And it's not like this latest RX-8 with the junky Renesas engine. For some reason, that older generation, although they weren't made for hundreds of thousands of miles, that was just an awesome car. I loved it. I love the style. Remember, there was there's the regular RX-7, and there was like an R model or an R1, or can't remember what it was, but it was awesome, man. It gave you the extra little lip along the front spoiler and little wing on the back. It was a really aggressive little car. I loved it. Jai, welcome back there. Jai, great to see you back for sure. Would you recommend the Mark 8.5 Volkswagen GTI with 265 ponies, or the Mark 8.5 Volkswagen GTI Club Sport 298? I heard the Club Sport has harsher ride due to the stiffer suspension. Well, Jai, you know how I rock. Let's put it this way. Maybe this will answer this for you. I'm going to say it in my political way, because for some reason Canadians seem to be very political these days. Um, when I bought my Mustang years ago, I bought the V8. I didn't get the V6, and I had a manual gearbox. When I bought the M5, I didn't buy a 535 or a 540. I bought an M5. So you know where I'm coming from with that. So I guess what I'll say is I favor performance, the best performance packaging you can get in a given model. I value that over other features or cute styling accents. I value the performance. I'd much rather have a base entry level hot rod with the best engine gearbox platform versus a loaded up something with a softer engine configuration. If that helps, I would go with something a little bit more power output. That would be me. I hope that helps there, Jai. Rocky, hi Mark. Have you heard of the Mazda 3 that apparently the entry level comes with cylinder deactivation? Why would Mazda play around with disastrous technology? That's a great point. Actually, I'm not overly familiar with that. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I thought I heard something about it, but I'm not overly familiar. I would suggest that what you're saying is right, and that anytime you bring in that type of technology, even Honda, right? And what is it, VCM or whatever they call it, and GM and all these manufacturers go into that. I don't know what the point of that is, what they're trying to gain from it, but they are certainly risking durability. And I would tend to really, if it's an option, shy away from any of that type of technology. If that's an option to do so, I would certainly do that. Jai says, would the stiffer ride put you off? Not at all. As a matter of fact, even with the M5, when I get in the M5, which coincidentally I still have, I immediately go to the fastest shift settings and the most aggressive ride settings immediately. It just drives more like it was meant to drive. So I go all in. I put it usually on the hardest setting of everything. It shifts better. It drives better. And so, no, it wouldn't bother me. I've been in some pretty aggressive cars, McLarens and Lambos, and some of those can be jarring. Some of them can be, almost shatter the teeth. But you know what? I do believe that if you want to buy a car like that, they're not necessarily set up on that aggressively. I mean, I think the only car that I can think is that wasn't an exotic that was set up so rugged and so rigidly there's two really. The GT3 RS, which I've driven, and I mean, but that's a track car, so it's kind of like that's the trade. But do you remember the M4 GTS? The M4 GT. Do you remember that car a few years ago? Where it was that stripped out, had the roll cage in the back. It had adjustable suspension, but you had to get out there and do it manually. It had water injection. Do you remember the car? Oh, I should have bought that thing, man. I should have bought it. It had the wonderful S55 engine in it. Spectacular car. And just because of its unique and rarity, I think it would have been worth holding on to. But I never did. I should have bought that. Jai Singh, thanks, Mark. You betcha. Scott says, do you put snow tires for the winter? Most of us do. My wife, my kids, we all have some level of that. Some have pure snow and they swap them. Like a couple of them have just pure snow tires and they swap them in the spring. Others have all weather, and I'm rocking all weather tires. So I usually use all weather because it's just, you get in the spring and then it's a mad rush to get to the tire shop to get them swapped. Plus, you're storing extra wheels. I hate that. That's a pain in the ass. So, I mean, if you're driving like a high performance car that's on like some serious race slicks, yeah, you have to do that. But if you're driving a regular car like a Camry or an Accord, and you're debating whether you want those kind of garbagey all seasons or you want to step it up, I mean, what I do, and with my truck, I put all weather. So it gives you the snowflake, it gives you the colder weather driving, it gives you the sipes, it gives you essentially snow driving capability. Probably works as good as 80%, 90% as well as a snow tire would. But it gives you the capability of longer wear, and it gets you, and you can drive it all year round, summer, winter. So I use that. Most of us are using the all weather, just it's easier. Less playing around, less extra wheels to lay around. They wear a little faster than swapping two sets, but then you know what? I'm fine with that. B Young says hello again from Texas. Hi, great to have you. Kevlar says a Volkswagen hatchback is fast. Blew my poor Ram away. Yeah, 100%. And a lot of those, the GTIs or the Golf Rs and the double clutch gearboxes, the DCTs, they're so quick. They're just so quick, so fun, and they're a great car. They're small, compact, quick, and to Jai's point, I can see why you're shopping for those cars. They're a lot of fun, and I know they're a little techy and they're a little busy with the electronics, but every brand is doing that, and it's just more of a matter of getting used to, I think, than anything else. Um, Manos Valanis says, "Hello from Athens." Hey, hello from Edmonton, and of course from Alberta, and hi to Greece. You know what? We were down there 2 years ago, not Athens, but we were in Greece, and of course, just on a cruise because we were doing a Italian cruise there with the fam, and we stopped off there in Mykonos, and I love it. I love Greece. I love the atmosphere, and it's bright. It's cheery. Of course, I love the country. Just thought I'd drop that. Rocky says, "Hi, Mark. I'm shocked to see how many uneducated buyers are settling for low quality vehicles instead of spending time researching and buying the Nissan Frontier 3.8 liter V6 Nissan GTR and Z car." Rocky. I couldn't agree more. I don't. People aren't looking at them. I don't know why. I think the GTR is just too overpriced. It's an awesome car. I just think they need to figure out the pricing again and bring that back down to reality. The Z car is a fun car. Get it with a stick shift. That's a nice upgrade. The thing with the 3.8 in the truck, the Frontier is a little puzzling to me. I mean, look around. What do we have for options? And it's baffling. People go buy, a Ford. Like, why? The Ford Ranger is trash, and it's almost as much money as an F-150. There's no place in the market for that truck, if you ask me. The Maverick's even worse. They give you a 4-cylinder engine, and they charge you significant cash. I wouldn't even touch those trucks. F-150, sure, you like full size, go for it. Toyota, you know what? They've got so many problems with their new Tacoma that why wouldn't you be willing to take a chance on a Nissan? That naturally aspirated V6 is a pretty solid little workhorse. I wouldn't dispute that at all. I think it's definitely worth a look, and I think more people should be looking. If they're looking at that sort of mid-size vehicle, why wouldn't you look at that 3.8 in the Nissan? I don't understand why more people don't, and you don't see many out on the road, which is, maybe it's a bit of a marketing campaign thing, and maybe they don't. I think it is really more marketing, and I think they don't necessarily try to pitch it to the right clientele. I just think they aren't marketing it adequately, and I don't, nobody drives them. I don't know why they don't. I think right now it's actually a better truck than the Tacoma right now, until that Tacoma proves out the auto trannies and the manuals. Until Toyota can prove that those gearboxes are figured out, and even that 2.4 is reliable with the turbo, give that 3 or 4 or 5 years. Okay, fine. Then you can debate it. But till then, I'd say this is the best, probably smaller to mid-sized truck that you can find on the market right now. I mean, you can go with the full size. That's another route. But in terms of this size of truck, definitely something to look at. Deflection Mode says, "Hello, Mark. Here watching from Katy, Texas, near Houston. Hey, welcome and thanks. I love Houston. Been there too a few times for work in my old career back in the day when I worked kind of a corporate game. I don't work that anymore. I did fly a lot, and I was in Houston a bunch for work, for meetings, for all kinds of goodness there, just to brainstorm, if you will. And I like it down there. Really humid, but it's beautiful. I love those parts of the country." Carlos Sierra says, "What do you think about Teslas?" Non-politically, of course. Yeah, you know what? I won't talk politically. I don't. I'll leave politics out because I went there not intentionally, but it was a very political topic, and I don't want to go there. I'm just going to leave politics out. Take it for what it is. What do I think of them? Okay. First off, I like ICE. First off, I like the vibration, the sound, the feel, the resonance, the way an internal combustion engine accelerates. It gives you that sort of linear increasing performance torque that you get. There's just that feeling, the sound, the smell, everything. So I will always prefer an ICE. However, for a commuter vehicle, we had one a few years ago, a couple of years ago now, a Model 3 long range, and I liked it. I liked it. I liked the way it drove. I like that you can get in and just zoom away. You're not warming it up or idling it. Um, I liked the performance. I like that you're cruising at 70, 80K an hour. You punch it and it just goes. There's no other ICE cars aside from going exotic that feels like that rush. So I love that immediate torque hit that you get, especially when you go into the upper ranges. I've driven the plaids. I mean, they're ridiculous. They're spectacular. Um, what I don't like are the obvious things, right? And it's real because I experienced it, the range anxiety, and I had to sit around and wait for 8 hours, and I had to park it over at the mall and have one of my have my wife pick me up and leave the vehicle there while it charged for 8 hours because it was a slower charger and they had no supercharger in the area. I get it. I know what the range is like. I know what the frozen door handles are like. I've seen that. I mean, it's debatable about the maintenance costs because, while a lot of people, pro Tesla people say, well, the maintenance costs are gone because you're not doing oil changes and all that, and that's true. But there's a premium to get into an electric car, and so that heavily offsets those incremental costs for, say, even an annual oil service at say $200 a year. 10 years, that's $2,000. That'll buy you a lot of differential between a car that drives like a Tesla Model 3 and say a car like an Accord that might be $10,000, $15,000 less. So the cost of the oil services and things, really, to me, it's more of the inconvenience, but rather it's not so much the cost. I think Teslas, they got to fit. I mean, for me, like, it would be a city dweller primarily, and it could not be your only vehicle. But I think they're fun. So, um, let's see here. Solo says, have a great weekend. Yeah, you betcha. Thanks, Solo. Bearded Vado says, my '05 Frontier was also part of the problem, batch radiator leaking into the transmission. Yeah, that was it. The older ones, there was some problems with that, wasn't there? Yeah, they did have some issues for sure. And then taking out the tranny, I remember that. Yeah, so you go back old enough and there are some troubles there. Vel says, all turbo cars will burn off. Some turbo cars are good. I mean, you look at a 911 turbo, and Porsche just knows how to build a car, and those turbos and those engines will outlast almost any NA car from any other regular brand. So it's kind of more who builds it. The turbo technology can create extra heat and deterioration, and generally, there's a higher risk of something going for sure, and the maintenance costs are a little bit more. Rocky Mark, you should do a meet and greet. Would love to meet you, brother. I'm in Markham, Ontario, but praying that someday we'll move to Calgary by the Rocky Mountains. Yeah, Rocky, that would be great sometime. I love meeting viewers. I love meeting fans, and I certainly love meeting, even more importantly, fellow car people that just love to talk about cars. I love cars. I love talking about them. And that would be great. Yeah, I mean, if you're ever in Calgary, I mean, certainly give me a look up. I know Ontario, I'm rarely down there. I've been there a few times for kind of work or transitioning to going somewhere else, but not very often I make it down there. But yeah, I mean, if you're down in these parts, I'm trying to look at getting back more into some of the car meets, local car meets, whether I generate kind of a new club or whether I join an existing one. I know there's a club here that gets together. They have a bunch of exotic cars, um, and they all get together. And I haven't been part of that. I was there a few years ago. I used to show up there with the Lambo and stuff. But it'd be fun to get back into that too, and start doing more of those meet and greets and get back out into the car world and the meets. I just haven't been out in that enough. It's been a hectic couple of years this year. If you need to know, on my personal level, a lot of loss this year, which I won't get into, but that took my mind off, took my heart out of a lot of things, and certainly my focus was a little bit astray. Not to mention I was very busy, and things are changing both in the channel side as well as personal life. Things have changed a lot, actually. So a little distraction last couple of years, but we're back in the horse. We're back on the wagon, and yeah, it'd be fun to meet up for sure with fellow car folks. You betcha. Let's see here. Let's It says, young you live not too far from me and Katie. See, that's good that we're all talking for sure. Kevlar says, I will never let a Tesla change in a lane or pass me on the highway. Not a cool vehicle at all. That's fair, 100%. Hey, Mark, what do you think about Acura TLX Type S? Awesome cars. Can you say? I mean, I like Honda and Acura products. I made a video a while ago, and I think a lot of people took it the wrong way. I did a video about why are Acuras so cheap, or why are used Acuras so cheap, and it got a lot of negative press, and I think a lot of that was because there's a couple points I was talking about with, they weren't as innovative as, say, Lexus, um, and other topics where I kind of talked about um, the styling wasn't quite as flashy. But I mean, that's not entirely true. They've got some great headlight designs. I like the MDX a lot. I like their vehicles. I think they're wonderful, and I would certainly buy an Acura. I was actually looking at one this year. I was thinking about buying an MDX. I started pricing them out. I was thinking about buying an SUV for a daily driver for the business, and that was actually one that came to mind because of the 3.5. But unfortunately, that 3.5 now is part of this conversation of this channel video today, and that's talking about these engine issues that a lot of car manufacturers are having these days. Why can't these car builders build engines these days? It's beyond me, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Carlos says, awesome, thanks. The thing that I'm traumatized by having a N54 about a decade, everything could go wrong on that did go. Totally. You know what? It's Carlos, I get it. Like, I saw the same thing. My N54 was a trash bag on wheels. It was fun for those moments in time when it was running. It revved out nicely. It was a manual rear wheel drive. It had all the ingredients, but I just didn't know. It was just a nightmare. So yeah, when you own a car like that, it says like it pushes people to go full scale the other way. Like it really does, because persons usually had their fill of that car. Bearded Vado says, I think if Toyota would warranty the turbo longer, like their hybrid battery engines, people would probably feel more comfortable buying them. Tacomas, and possibly that'd be part of it. I think just the idea of having turbo is a potential, not just for the turbo longevity, but the engine longevity, because if people don't drive them properly, there's a risk, right? You can take out an engine. Usually the engines are pretty well protected, but you got to do a warm up, cool down. Oil services are more important than they with an NA engine, and I think there's some of those details that a lot of people just don't want to be bothered with. CD says, worth it to get 2011 to 13 335 IS DCT as they're 10 to 20K over getting a B58. CD, no. I would not. I would not. Because that's a slightly tuned N54. I know it's got the better gearbox and it's got the sportier, it looks and it has the badging and it has all those things. I know the prices seem right, but I would personally stay away from that. I would shop and save a little bit more money and get an early generation B58. That would be my opinion. That would be my take on it. I wouldn't even go to anything with an N54. Hope that helps. Brian in Orlando says, what is really going on with Toyota? Another recall, doesn't that make the 3 in the last 3 weeks to a month? It's crazy. I know. What's going on with Toyota? What a disaster. Deflection Mode says, everyone, please hit that thumbs up, support the channel. Oh, I really appreciate that. It helps any channel that you support much more than you would think. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I do appreciate that. Thanks for that shout out there, for sure. Yeah, so anytime if you're watching a video and you're watching it, throw a thumbs up, or even if you don't want to put a big comment, even it's just like a hi, or how you doing, or good day, or cheers, anything. Even if you don't have a question or you don't want to ask something specifically, just throw something in the comment. It actually does help the algorithm. And if everybody did that, it does actually help. It does help the long haul, and it does help push the videos a little bit further. Let's just see here. Critch SL says, I love my Chevy Traverse, but total it. Please tell me the best large SUV to get with a good long-lasting engine. Love from Alabama. Full-size SUV. Good point. I probably wouldn't go there. I wouldn't go GM right now. They're having too many problems with the L87. Ford don't like it. I don't think there's engine issues there too with the sixes. So I'm going to drop 2 nuggets here for you. 3 maybe. Depends what kind of budget you're talking. Full size SUVs. Have you looked at the Toyota Grand Highlander? Gives you 3-row. It's a full size SUV. It's a little bit vanilla, but you know what? It's reliable and it's going to do you well that way. You could look at the Grand Highlander, could be an option. The newly revised, if you've got a little bit more cash and you're willing to spend, I mean, the Infiniti QX80 is another nice touch, that new one with the V8 and a torque converter auto. They're a lot better. Those are great vehicles. And if you don't want to go all that big, I mean, you'd be surprised. The Honda Pilot's one that I looked at too, because it gives you 3 rows. And of all of those mid to upper size 3-row SUVs, I found the Pilot had the best 3rd-row space compared to the Highlander, compared to a lot of their other competition. The Honda Pilot was actually pretty good space, nice vehicle, nice interior. The fit and finish seemed pretty nice in there too. So those are a couple I would recommend. Let's just see. CD, my 09 E90 328 is on lowering springs and the inside of the rear tires is going bald. How do I fix this issue? Yeah, that sounds like it's just a camber issue probably, right? Lowering springs. You've got to probably get it taken in. I'm not, quarter balance it or take it in to get a 4-wheel alignment. Actually, if it's an E90, it's probably rear-wheel drive. If it's all-wheel drive, you need all-wheel alignment. If it's rear-wheel drive, you probably get away with a rear-wheel alignment. I'd probably do an all-wheel alignment anyway. Get the 4 wheels done because usually you got too much camber. Even toe in more so on the front. But if you got too much camber, you're eating up the inside edge of those tires. Also, make sure you got running the air pressures right on that. But definitely check that out. And I can't remember if those ones are if they're unidirectional or not unidirectional, staggered. If they're staggered or not on that car. If they're staggered, that means the fronts and the backs are different size. If they're not staggered, then make sure you do more rotations, front to back, back to front. But make sure you do that. I would do that 4-wheel balance, wheel alignment. Sorry, 100%. Get that done right away before you put another set of tires on. Scott says, will you watch the Super Bowl? Yeah, I'm always in for a good time. You betcha. Bobby De Niro X says new Mitsubishi Outlander. There you go. Another good choice. Tube Dude 92. Hey, Mark, I've been looking to decide on an SUV. Now that Toyota is going turbo, I'm thinking Audi SQ5. I heard the V6 is the better of the Audi engines. Would you go 21 or SQ5 or 22 plus? I think that's a nice vehicle. I've got a friend who's actually got one, an SQ5. I can't remember what years, is around the 22, I would say as well. It's an excellent engine, Porsche engine, similar to what you'll find in the Macan. Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good gamble, but it's Audi. If you can get an extended warranty, that's ultimately ideal. But that's a good engine. It's better than going with the base. E888 garbage, that 4-cylinder, stay away from it. So that's a pretty good choice. I tried to get an alignment and they couldn't do it, CD says. I don't know. I'm not sure why that would be. Maybe that particular shop's not able to, or I would maybe check around a couple shops and see if somebody can do that for you. Darko says, hey, Mark, what are your opinions about wheel spacers and lowering springs? I did spacers on my F-Type R, and lowering springs, I like them too. But often when you do them and you don't find the right balance, quite often you'll have scuffing. You could have damage. You could have sometimes people end up having to roll their fenders in because you end up spacing out and then lower it, and then you end up getting scraping and scuffing. I'm not the biggest fan of lowering springs because it really screws up geometry unless you set it up properly and you do it professionally. But I mean, they're fine. Lowering springs are fine. It's just that all of a sudden you create other problems, or scraping the undercarriage, going up on ramps, and that's where the daily practicality, I like to have something that's easier to use, that I don't have to worry about scraping all the time. And wheel spacers, I did use wheel spacers on the Jag. But there, some people say there's a risk. There's more of that torque against the, your wheel bearings and suspension systems. And if you use the wrong spacers, people say there's a risk of something coming dislodged and becoming loose, or a potential, I'll say, extremely remotely chance of something falling off. But if you torque everything and you get a quality, reputable set, then you should be fine. So I'm not against either, and I've done actually both. Thanks, Mark. You betcha. Samuel says, what can you say about the reliability of GM small engine Microtech? Not good. No, not good. Vertex, new. Aaron says, what if the new Toyota engine's blowing up, the 1.6T and the V6 biturbo, because of oil viscosity? What are more brands that same issues in modern engines? Well, see, and I don't know what everybody's using for oil. I haven't done that sort of deep dive to see what sort of commonalities we're seeing. Yeah, why are we losing main bearings on that V6? But why is GM now on that L87 also losing rod bearings? That's the latest recall of almost 1 million vehicles. Hyundai Kia, the Theta engines, they said there was from a lack of cleaning and that metal particulate flooding around in there. So it could be a combination of poor hygiene with regards to quality control. It could be just, maybe it is oiling, maybe it's viscosity, maybe the bearings are too tight. I remember the E60 M5. There was a lot of debate about why those were spinning bearings or blowing bearings on them so prematurely. Was it a viscosity? Was the bearings too tight? I think it was a combination of. It was also a combination of rev-happy owners that when the engines weren't warm and they'd rev them up right away because the engines really wanted to rev, so people would just get crazy and they'd start revving it up. And there's probably a combination, but I'd like to hear more on the Toyota. I'm not totally sure, but that'd be intriguing for sure. Kreitchesel says, I had thought about a Grand Highlander from a video I watched of yours. Thanks for the advice, because I'm going to go out looking this upcoming week, and it's scary with all the engine troubles. Yeah, and the only thing with the Grand Highlander, and I don't know what the latest is, the only thing they had that issue with the recall with the airbags on the A-pillar. So if you had the window down, the airbag wouldn't activate. So there was some kind of a recall with that. But other than that, I didn't hear a whole lot of issues with that vehicle from a mechanical standpoint. So I think it's a pretty safe bet. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Mini Cooper. Samuel Tan says, I have a Mini Cooper R56 from 2012. Reliability sucks and parts are very expensive here in Philippines. Haha. I agree. I know. And I think I had a video recently where I talked about that. The Mini Coopers being pretty rough on reliability. But there's a generation, if you kind of get, I believe it's around 2014, 2015 and newer, then you're into a revised engine and it's a lot more reliable. It's not perfect. It's still BMW, but they're better. So yeah, I definitely get you, Samuel. You're right. Dugan says, any comments on the 3.2 liter V6 that would come into the 22 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk? No comments. Not good. Not good from what I've seen, what I've heard. And time will tell. Remember when Jeep came out with that 3.8 that followed the wonderful 4 liter? I had that 4 liter in my Wrangler years ago in the TJ. That was bulletproof. And then they followed up with a 3.8, and that thing wouldn't even last 100,000 miles. So it's kind of junk. I mean, they have their ups and downs. They have some decent products, but no, not amazing, to be honest with you. So you know what? I guess I just want to touch on this. I was just looking real quick. I was looking at Ford recalls over 90,000 vehicles for EcoBoost engine failures. So this, I'm looking at this. It's a site. It's Automotive Dive site here on Forma. What is this? Electra Vehicle R&D, whatever. No, but this is a dive brief by Automotive Dive that says Ford recalls over 90,000 vehicles for EcoBoost engine failures because their valves. They say the intake valves were fracturing and then falling. The heads would fall into the combustion chamber and losing an engine. See, that's a problem. I have a big issue with that. Why is this crap happening? Why is Honda also having to recall 300,000 vehicles due to some engine risks, engine problems? There's some programming, but then there's also those V6 engines with the rod bearings and the crank and the machining and the crank causing rod failures or bearing failures. Why is that happening with Honda? Why is Toyota getting these issues with these main bearings going out on their 3.4s? Why is GM losing lifters on some of their V8s on the 5.3s and 6.2s? Like, why is this all happening? And how is the industry okay with this? How are these brands not held to a higher account? That's just what I'd like to know. That's just realistically, some of these problems are self-induced. I've had videos where I've talked about direct injection and the kind of problems it can cause. Some of the issues are related to turbos and the extra heat or abuse. Some of them are from the longer service intervals and delayed oil changes. Some of them are bad suppliers of bearings and parts. Some of them are bad tuning and programming. Some of them are just junk. Some of them are bad design. So there seems to be a bit of an epidemic right now on bad engines. And it's really puzzling and really worrying because it's almost at a point like where we just said, right? Mazda's got that new inline six that's got an issue. Toyota's got issue upon issue. Honda's got issues. GM, Ford, forget about it. They got more issues than they can shake a stick at. Same with Stellantis and Jeeps and Dodges. Where do you go? Like, what can you possibly buy? It's very spotty. You have to be very specific. It's not even like, oh, I'll buy a Toyota, I'm good, or I'll buy a Honda, I'm good, because that's not even the case anymore. It's really, you have to be very selective and very specific on the type of vehicle now too, because Honda might have an amazing vehicle in this model, but their next model might be crap, and we've seen that. The 1.5 has been a trouble. The 3.5 has been a trouble. 2 liters, pretty good engine. So it kind of depends, right? Manual gearbox is good, but the CVT is shit. So it's almost like case by case. Cylinder deactivation, bearded Vado. Yeah, you betcha. Cylinder deactivation is another tech that's taken out engines as well. So there's a lot of reasons this is happening. But a lot of this, I think, boils down to technology. Again, cylinder deactivation, emissions regulations, direct injection, more complicated technology, turbochargers, high boost pressure, small engine. A lot of that is a major contributing factor. And then, of course, the cost-cutting element. The bean counters are saying, no, you can't spend this. Here's your budget. So they're shopping around for lower grade parts, lower grade bearings, crank parts, materials, steels, metals. Designers are pushing their luck. There's a lot of these other aspects that make these vehicles less and less reliable. So it's just unfortunate, but you have to be very selective when you're shopping for a new vehicle and the engines that come with them, because there's no givens in this industry anymore. And I can see, to the earlier point there, why some people are going with vehicles like Tesla. I mean, kind of is what it is when you look around everywhere, and every ICE vehicle seems to be failing in some big way. So anyway, you know what? I'm going to just cut it right there, everybody. I hope you all had an absolute wonderful live stream. Thank you again so much. Be sure, hey, if you didn't get a chance to check out my roast video today on Exotic Car Play Place, the video's got absolutely horrid numbers of views. For those that have viewed it and watched it, I really appreciate it. Those Fridays, I'm posting a different video. It's really more of a roast, and really Facebook or vehicle roast, or I like to have some fun. It's more about having some fun and some laughs. If you haven't been over there and had a look at the video, please do go take a look. You might find it kind of interesting, kind of fun and amusing. So anyway, with all of that said, have a great night, great weekend. And we'll probably see, if not, maybe tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock release, local Alberta time is the next video. Hope to see each and every one on the next one. Everybody have an absolute wonderful, wonderful weekend. See you then. Bye-bye.